Hey everyone, welcome. We think about the law or which is related to the regulating the different perspective of the employment and the businesses in the organization. So it come to the altogether there are around 78 numbers of the existing labor laws, and that laws are defining the nature of the Indian labor laws. So that the 78 different laws, it is not labor law, we can divide that in the four different categories, which are related to the company's financial environment and then labor as well as the environment, not environment, labor as well as the employment. So when it comes to the four different categories, so this is a bucket for the companies and every organization, even that are the company, that are the partnership firm, that are the any societies, whatever are there. So these four areas of law are applied to them, because every company, every organization that are registered with some company which are the regulating as a company or as an association to them, then it is also related to the finance. So there are the law which regulate the finance for company, their company. Then after the organization, they have to be deal with the environment also. Even that environment is specifically related to the industries, that the manufacturing and the construction, but altogether it is applicable for all the establishments. Then it comes to the labor law, because the businesses are functioned through the human resources. So human resources are maximum number of the people, they are laborer means, when you see in the broader perspective, everyone doing something for the objective of any organization, any people who are in the group of people as a company, so that is all together in the laborer. However, it is specifically applied to a class which has been defined under the law. When we it come to the labor law specifically, so we can divide its nature in the two perspectives, that is the primary law and the secondary law, and that regulated the employment in Indian perspective. However, every nation, we talk about the Indian scenario only in this live session. This is our 36th level of compliance live master session on the future perspective of the Indian labor law, its impact on the industries, as well as the career of the professional who are into the labor law, as well as the HR. So all that we are covering up and summing up all that, how you need to be prepared for the future. So, however, still there are many members to join this program, but it is 4:05 now. We have to continue the session. So here I have one request for you. So please share your location from where you have joined this live session today, so that I can welcome you here one by one personally, to creating an environment of great learning with this master session. So quickly, just share in the chat box. I can see your names who has joined as of now, but share your location where you have joined this program. So I will welcome you all that one by one. Then we will jump into the session immediately. So here is Pratibhan. He has joined from Chennai. Divya from Goa. Welcome you, Divya, in this session. Shekhar has joined from Bangalore. We welcome you, Shekhar, in this live session today. This is going to be a great master session on the managing of the labor law compliances. However, it is the present as well as for the future also. There are the four new codes are ready to implement, and for that you should be ready. How to prepare for that? That concept we are developing in this live session. So Jagannath has joined from Hosur. Welcome you, Jagannath, in this live session. Shailesh Lambani joined from Bhuj, Kutch, Gujarat. Welcome you in this live session. So I see throughout India, we have all members joined from the South India, Bangalore, Delhi, Gujarat. So welcome you all in this session today, and expecting that you will participate whenever it is required, your participation, so that your learning can be most impactful from this program. However, there are two and three information which I want to share with you, as which come from our managing team to us. So I have to deliver that with you. So first of all, this is a certificate program, and you will get a certificate from this program. And therefore, that we have a system for the certificate, and it is our 36th number of the program which we have initiated since August 2021. So with these 5 months, we have covered around 36. This is 35 number of the masterclass in this labor law compliance management, where we have covered around more than 600 numbers of people in the different sessions, different program. So here I have one request to someone that they have unmuted their voice. So please mute yourself so that we can continue the session, so that there cannot be any background noise. And second thing which I want to share, that this is a video session and we are recording this session, and all this recording will be available for you by tomorrow. It will be shared you for your future, you can utilize it. And other that the video, we will share whatever the templates or we will design, however we have designed that, we just share with you how you have to utilize that further when you have to prepare yourself for the future to become ready for the implementation of the labor law application, which are specifically for the 4 new labor codes are coming up and implementing in India. So for that, how you have to be prepared for the same template we have designed for you, and that you have required to just implement that your workplace. So all that we will be shared with you. Then further, the third thing is that related to your certificate. So how you have to proceed for your certificate, we have a system for that. And one thing which I want to confirm here, that certificate will be released on Wednesday. So there is one prerequisite. So I will share that in at the end of this session, and then by Wednesday you will be get the certificate of this participation program. So now welcome you all here in this live session. This is our 36th live session on the future perspective of the labor law. So I here again welcome you all in this session. So let's begin with this session, what we are covering exactly here in this live session, and how we will together ready for the future implementation of the new application and processes which is going to be come for the practice with the new labor codes which are going to be implemented as of now, which is expected from the 1st of April 2022. So now let's start here. And one important thing, please keep the notepads with you, and whatever the question that have in your mind, so just note them on your notepad. We will cover up all that questions at the end. So that's why we have kept specifically 30 minutes for the question and answer here, so that we can cover up all your questions. However, in between you can ask the question in the chat box, maybe during due to the time we have to deliver all that perspective and give you the practical learning about the future preparation, so that if I skip any questions, so you can ask those questions at the end. That time you can unmute yourself to asking about those questions. So we will try to resolve all the queries. So this is now the whole schedule of this program. We have divided into the 2 different sections. However, there is a 3 different sections. So first, here we will be discuss about the present perspective and the future perspective of the labor law. Why it is present and future? Because all the perspective which are with the present labor laws, there are many issues, and that issues, however, somewhere the government should try to reform that, and also try to give the ease to doing business for the organization. Then actually we will understand the actual perspective of the future labor law which are going to be changed, and with the changes has been done, but that are going to be implemented for practically to the professional who are into the labor law compliance services, how they practically will deal with these new perspective as well as the new regulation of the 4 new codes that we are going to be understand, and then you will understand how you have to be prepared for. In the second section, we are particularly focusing on the practical scenario, how you have to deal in the future with related to these 4 new codes, how you have to prepare for. So there are the different perspective, as well as the different steps which we have created for you, the compliance management portfolio, how with the strategically you can manage the compliances in the future with the present also. However, with the four new codes where the present or the existing labor law has been merged. So for the third section is specifically for the question and answer section, where we have divided it for the specifically for the 30-minute for covering all your question and answer. So this all the session will be go for or till 8:30 p.m. However, from the experience of our previously covered 35 sections, 35 sessions, so we had never any session we have closed before 2 hours and 45 minutes or by 8:45 minutes. So expectly it may be go further till 7 also, but it will be depend on your queries and questions, so that we try to cover all that and resolve all that. So first of all, it come to that our aspiration to share with you with the platform where we are interacting with you today, and specifically the body who will be provide you the certification. So here we are as a learning studio which will provide you the certification on this program participation, and further you have been provided the community where you can also connect with us. But this organization is a bridge of the professional of the veterans who have more than 20 or 25 years of experience. They have established this organization in May 2020. So now it is a 1.5 year old association of the industrial expert and the veterans also. So this organization was established with the objective to provide the learning platform to everyone with the reasonable cost, developing the professionalism or profession. Then this objective was started with a vision to educate 100 million people by 2040 that give the best of the knowledge that need to cater the true professionalism. Then the people who are into and behind this SVR Learning Studio, they are on the mission that influence and educate 25,000 students or people every year with the different platform. However, we have also the digital learning. There are also the physical learning platforms available. In collectively, all the platforms and other different perspective we have specifically for the digital learning. So there, it is the mission to educate 35,000 students every year. But further, it does not mean that we have to reach only to the people, but we have a value that with whom we are interacting today, and you will be the lifetime member of our Great Learning League community. You have provided the community where you can connect to us, where you can ask any queries. So we will resolve those queries free of cost for you. So it is also one of the long-term association values we are providing, and when this organization was established. Furthermore, when it also you need to be know about what we are into specifically. So we are dealing with as of now. However, in the beginning, when this was started, it was only the digital learning solution. But then we have expanded for the other HR and other developing areas and the professions also. So there we are also into the licensing services for Pan India. Then corporate consulting services we are also providing Pan India through our digital and the different partners throughout India as for with our channel. Then the individual and the group mentorship services we are also providing. And then professional resume building services we have also digital learning solution and the digital library. So these are the different component of our services which we are serving to the individual as well as the groups. So that in form of the corporate also, in form of the individual also. When it comes to the digital learning solution, when it was established with the objective in the beginning, so in that we have 5 types of different domains to develop the personal development of the people, or that is the basically the personal development program, professional development, as well as the entrepreneur development, leadership development, and business leader development program. So for that, you can check out our the website where we have all that program landing there. So however, you can connect with us on the different platform. As of now, we have the 5 types of the platform where you can connect with the SVR Learning Studio and its team. So first of all, you have been provided the email, which is the svrstudio2436@gmail.com, where you can connect to us for any query in the future. And then you can also visit to our website. So that website is on the name of www.azuretrend.com. Further, after that, we have our digital academy also, where the most of the digital learning solutions are landed there, where you can also check out with that. Furthermore, we are also providing the social learning and the social platform to the our community, so that some insights and information we can provide free of cost on there for influencing the people other than the connecting with people directly. So there we have specifically, when the people want to learn the soft skills, so there are the separately one social platform available for the HR who are aspiring to learn specifically the area of HR. So there is the separately one platform available for the HRs. Then the people who are aspiring to learn from the global leaders with the books, but they don't have time to learn from the books and they cannot spend time on learning from the books. So for that, we have a solution for the book readers. So there we provide these small summaries where you can learn from the every greatest book from the global leaders. So furthermore, we are also providing the digital library also that you can check out on our website. So now it's come to your the facilitator or the mentor in this today's session. So my name is K.S.S. Srinivasan. I have done my BLLB MBA HR and more than 20 years of experience in HR domain and the labor law specifically. So I have served with the Indian as well as the multinational organization. So as of now, I am providing the facility and the support services to the SVR Learning Studio as the facilitation of HR and the labor law trainings at its digital platform and the digital learning solution specifically. So this is all about the SVR Learning Studio as well as your facilitator for today. Then it comes to specifically about the program, what we are covering up and how this program is going to be further. Specifically, it is going to cover the area of the labor law, because the labor law are specifically and relevantly important for managing the employment in your organization, even every organization. When we think about the law, or which is related to the regulating the different perspective of the employment and the businesses in the organization, so it comes to the altogether there are around 78 numbers of the existing labor laws, and that laws are defining the nature of the Indian labor laws. So that the 78 different laws, it is not labor law, we can divide that in the 4 different categories, which are related to the company's financial environment, and then labor as well as the environment, not environment, labor as well as the employment. So when it comes to the 4 different categories, so this is a bucket for the companies and every organization, even that are the company, that are the partnership firm, that are the any societies, whatever are there. So these 4 areas of law are applied to them, because every company, every organization that are registered with some company which are the regulating as a company or as an association to them, then it is also related to the finance. So there are the law which regulates the finance for company, their company. Then after the organization, they have to be deal with the environment also. Even that environment is specifically related to the industry, that the manufacturing and the construction. But altogether, it is applicable for all the establishments. Then it comes to the labor law, because the businesses are functioned through the human resources. So human resources are maximum number of the people, they are laborer. Laborer means, when you see in the broader perspective, everyone doing something for the objective of any organization, any people who are in the group of people as a company. So that is all together in the laborer. However, it is specifically applied to a class which has been defined under the law. When it come to the labor law specifically, so we can divide its nature in the two perspective, that is the primary law and the secondary law, and that regulated the employment in Indian perspective. However, every nation, we talk about the Indian scenario only. So it is defining and regulating the employment. That's why it is important for every organization that you need to be follow, and you need to specifically comply with the regulation of all those. And why here we have divided it into the perspective, one is a primary and secondary law. It is related to its nature and how it is applied to the organization. So then primary law, we have divided that all those laws which require the prior approval for implementing its application in the organization. Secondary laws are all those labor law, however, it can be divided in all the other three categories too. But in the perspective of the labor law, secondary laws are those laws which are also important, but it does not require any prior approval from the authorities. So this is one of the perspective related to understanding of all the laws which are regulating the different functions of the industries. So even that are the specifically the registration from the incorporation, then that is their regulation related to the financial, then the environment, even that internal as well as the external, that come also the safety too. But furthermore, then the other labor law, which is defining the employment and condition of the employment or services in the organization. Then it come to specifically what we are going to cover up exactly here. And if you see from this scenario, which here one picture I have shared with you. So there we have divided in the four different categories, and then the fourth one is the labor law, that is specifically defining, regulating the employment in industries. And so that we have divided in the two for making your understanding that how you have to comply with these regulations. So that's why one is the primary law and secondary law. It is based on its compliance, which are based on the prescribed regulation under the different law which will be applied to an organization. However, for the example here, we will be pick up the specifically the manufacturing industry or the factories, but it is all together that are also similarly applies to the other industries. So other industries, so there we can divide the industry in the many different industrial establishment or the sector. However, broadly it has been divided in the three different industrial sector. One is known as the primary, secondary as the territorial. So primary is mostly that which are into the processing of natural resources. Secondary sector is the industrial sector where the maximum number of the processes are dangerous and hazard. So it is altogether when we collect that, it applies to the manufacturing and the big organization and industry. So that's why maximum number of the labor law are applied to the secondary industries. So that are the manufacturing. And then third one is the territorial, so that are the service sector, IDs, BPOs, then your restaurant, hotels, motels that are come in the territorial, which are the people-to-people connecting services on. So understanding the future perspective, so first we need to understand the pain with the current and the issue with the current or the existing labor law for the employer. However, going forward into this whole master session and understanding is existing pain point for the employer. So before that, one and two things I want to confirm with you, because this program is going to be a specific program to developing you skill to deal with the labor law compliances as well as not in the internal perspective, also for the outer, when there are the authorities who will visit to your organization to inspect and evaluate the procedure and the compliance application you have applied based on the regulation of the law. So how you have to deal with that, we are also sharing with them. And also it is related to your future perspective of building a career in the labor law compliance specialist. So first of all, going with this learning and understanding the current pain points. So here is also my one question for you. So question is that when you are learning it as the perspective of the labor law and becoming with this program, our motive is to make or becoming or building you as the labor law compliance administrator in this 2.5 hours of a program. So first of all, when you are becoming the labor law compliance administrator or the specialist with this program, what is the objective of this whole program today? So here is one question for you. You have to share with me or answer the four qualities of the labor law compliance specialists who are into the labor law compliances. What are the main qualities and success qualities of those people? They can be successful in their career and the labor law compliance management. So please quickly answer in the chat box. You have to give me answer the four qualities of the labor law compliance specialist or administrator. So quickly just answer in the chat box so that we can understand thoroughly the present perspective or the pain point specifically with the existing labor law, so that we can define the way out for the future law, what you have to implement in your organization when these four new codes will be implemented. However, there are no too much time for us to wait or to have started looking for the preparation. So it is around 2 months only. So today is 23rd, so it is the 7 days or 8 days in the January, then February and March. So there is around 60 and 65 days of time when we will be readily, we should be ready and prepared for implementing of the application, the four new labor codes which are going to be implemented. So, however, there are the good number of participants also, but I did not see or I did not get any answer from your side. However, the program is specifically designed to building of your career USP, unique selling proposition. So that's why you have to develop four qualities within you. That is, first of all, the people who are into the labor law, even though that are the professional in the organization, and who are also those people who are into service providing for the organization as a labor law compliance service provider. They should be all the time vigilant, foresighted, accountable, and responsible. And these are the four essential and successful quality of the labor law compliance specialist, and that same we are developing with this 2.5 hours of today's session. So now let's begin. When we have to be understand and specifically prepare for the future, so we have to understand the pain point of the current or labor laws for the employer. So why it is a pain point? Because these are the every labor law still it is required many improvements for employer as well as by the agencies to or otherwise there are the loopholes. So that's why the organization they have developed certain types of the bad practices which are impacting its natural coverage. With the objective these Indian law were enacted. So, with understanding, first of all, we can cover up. So, there are the different law as I have been shared with you here. So, that is the primary law and the secondary law. So, that secondary law and the primary law first are those law which require the prior approval. As I mentioned that we will exemplify here as a factory or the manufacturing. So, when it comes to the factories perspective, so there is the Factories Act 1948, which is the primary law where you require the prior approval from the authority. Then you can commencement or start the operation in that particular premises where you have established the factory. Then the organization which are not factories that will be complied with the regulation of the Shops and Commercial Establishment Act. So that is also one of the primary law which is providing the prior approval where you have to facilitate or comply with the regulation of that law. Then after you are engaging the manpower in your organization. However, some manpower are through on roll and organization, maximum number of organization, they are engaging the manpower through outsourcing. Now the new concept or that is covered under the contract labor, and that is also one of the primary law where you require the prior approval by the principal employer also, as well as the contractor or the service providers too. And then after there, the social security related to law where you have to remittance the contribution. So there is the Employee Provident Fund and the Employee State Insurance Act. So these are also the two primary laws. Then after there comes the other law. When you have been industries, you are an industrialist, so you have to comply with the primary laws of regulation where you require to prior approval. Then with that approval which has been granted to the organization, so there you have to comply with the secondary law, which are mandatory, but you does not require any prior approval. So that is, you are engaging the manforce or the manpower in your organization. They will render their service for some reward in the form of their wages. So there are the provision for the minimum wages you have to be complied with. There are the payment of the wages act which you have to be required to comply with. Then you have to pay the bonus to all employees annual basis for when that are the resources which actually generating the profit for an organization. So that's why when we are going to prepare for the future to comply with the regulation of the four new labor codes, we need to be understand the present pain point for the employer. Why? Because there has been a many regulation provided under the law which need to be required by the which need to be complied by the organization. So because that regulation which required to be complied by the organization, that are the obligation for the employer. So because employer is that one individual person who has been defined by the law, he will be responsible for that. So that's why it is the obligation for the employer, even though it is a factories act, shop and commercial, the contract level, every act or every law which is applied to an industry, so that are the have the regulation that required to be complied by the organization. So similarly, I'm sharing it, that is also the pain point for the employer, because if any obligation does not complied as per the regulation, so it will impact their image, because there are the provision of the punishment and the imprisonment also. So it will impact their image, business, as well as their finance. How? Because if any obligation, like there is a factory and you are the employer in the factory or the employer of the factory, so the obligation is that you required to obtain certain approval or the license for commencing a business in that premises. Then after, you have to facilitate the three major objective of the Indian labor law: the health, welfare, and safety. Then after, there are the other provision. However, the manufacturing that have the hazard processes and the hazard operations, so you have to separately assure the certain provision of the law. Then there you have to pay the annual leaves to the employee for according to their working. So these are the certain obligation for the employer which require to be fulfilled. If these obligations are not fulfilled, so the law is prescribed that the employer or the who is the employer as per the law, so that will be punished with the imprisonment for the 3 year and fine up to 2 lakh rupees, or also cancellation of their business license too. If this thing will be happen, so that it will impact their image, their finance, as well as their business. So that's why in the beginning I have mentioned that the existing labor laws still have many loopholes, but that are the big pain point for the organization. But in the future, that what is going to happen, we will be see that and analyze that in collaboratively when we will check all about these four new codes which are going to be implemented. And then similarly, the industries which are not the factories, they have the business, so that is covered under the Shop and Commercial Establishment Act, and that have the same obligation for the employer, for the employer specifically with the industries which are covered under the Shop and Commercial Establishment Act, so that have the similar as per the factory, they need to facilitate those provisions in their premises and in their organization. And the obligation are also still the same. If these obligations, like the restoration required, then you have to define the adult workers' hours of working, restriction for the double employment, then the employment of children also, opening and closing hours, then period of the rest, weekly off, then the facilitation. Though then the Indian labor law specifically, when that has been defined, even though different era was there it was the before of the independence, also after the independence, when the circumstances and the history actually happening. So accordingly, the labor law was implemented in India. But all those labor laws, their major objective is to facilitate the health, welfare, and safety norm to the industrial laborer. And accordingly, there is the industry which are not factories, so that are covered under the shop and commercial establishment. If these obligations are not fulfilled, there is the obligation of 1 lakh rupees to the employer and cancellation of the business line. However, the imprisonment does not defined under the provision of the Shop and Commercial Establishment Act, but there are the secondary law also, which is applicable to the shop and commercial establishment. So there it is defined that the employer will be punished with the imprisonment for a certain period of time. Then thereafter the another law. So when it comes to the first of all, you have established the business, like it is factory, it is shop and commercial establishment. Then you are engaging the manpower and the workforce for your businesses, because without manforce or without manpower, you cannot start or run your business. So you need to be manpower. However, the organization, they hire them directly as well as the indirectly also. When it comes to the indirect manpower, because now there are the scenario changing, so maximum number of the organization transferring their compliance to the vendor third party, so they hire the contract labor. Earlier there was the practices that the maximum number of the employees should be on the company role or the organization role, but now it is going to the practices of outsourcing, and that come under the Contract Labor Act 1970. So further, when you are engaging any employee by the third party, so you need to comply with the regulation of the Contract Labor Act 1970. So they have also the obligation for the employer, because it is making the principal employer responsible to comply every law related to the contract labor, even though by the contractor too, but the employer that has been defined as a supervisor for the contractor. So it is the responsibility of the principal employer to comply with all the regulation of the contract labor, even for the contractor also, because you have to supervise all that provision for the contractor when you have to comply the regulation of the Contract Labor Act 1970. So there is the registration, however, required by the principal employer, then the contract license by the contractor. Then similarly, that the facility or specifically the health, welfare, and safety provision, the principal employer required to be facilitated. Why? Because that the outsource manpower that does not deploy at the location of contract, it will be deployed at the site of the principal employer. So it is the responsibility of the principal to assure the health, safety, and welfare provision to the contractor as similar as for their direct employee. So if these obligations not fulfilled under the provision of the Contract Labor Act 1970, so there are the provision of 3 months of imprisonment and fine up to 1,000 rupees. Also, cancellation of your registration certificate. If that happen, if you are not complying with the provision of this law, so it will also again impact the 3 areas of the employer: their businesses, their finance, as well as their image, damage their image. Because if they that the employer will be imprisoned for the 3 months, even though the 3 day also, so that will impact their image in their competitor as well as their business domain. Similarly, now you have engaged the employee or the workforce, or it is directly or indirectly, but now there you are that the main force you have deployed for your business, that the processing or your the whatever the businesses you have, that will be done with the people or through the people only. When you are engaging that people, you have to pay to them. But now what you have to pay, how much you have to pay, the employer cannot decide it, but they can decide it at the upper side. But the government has been defined the minimum wages through the Minimum Wages Act 1948. So you cannot pay the wages less than the minimum wage which has been prescribed by the state. However, the right of the defining or prescribing of the minimum wage is with the state government. So in the particular state, whatever the minimum wage has been defined by the state, so that need to be followed and that need to be paid by the employer to their employer. If you are paying less than that, so there is the many obligation will be come to you. However, the second obligation, it is that you cannot bifurcate the prescribed minimum wage. You have to pay that. However, the many organization, they have that practice that they bifurcate it into 2 and 3 components, because that is a wrong practice. It will be impact with you that not fulfilling the obligation. However, under the provision of the Minimum Wage Act 1948, there is also the provision of the 6 months of imprisonment and fine up to 1,000. However, fine is not so big amount, but the imprisonment of the 6 months is the biggest obligation for the employer. And similarly, when employer has been the government has been defined the minimum wage, and then the employer need to be compliant with them, and it come to the that the question, does employer pay that minimum wage on specifically in the 2 month, that the 15-day in weekly basis. So that has been defined under the provision of the Payment of Wage Act 1936. So this is providing the regulation for the organization or the employer how you have to make and assure that payment to the employer. So this is defining specifically whatever the amount is payable to the employee, you have to pay that single amount to everyone which is pending or payable to anyone. So this law means the Payment of Wage Act 1936 also defining the responsibility of the employer that have to fix the wage period for the payment. It should be ideally, and it has been prescribed that if you are engaging the manpower less than within the existing labor law, the payment of wage of 1936, so there you have to pay it within 7 days. If it's above the 1,000 number, so it will be within 10th or within the 10th of the next month or the succeeded month for the wage period. Then after, it should not be more than or exceed 30 days. Then it is also, you have well know about when these that the concept of the 4 new codes goes come into the provision or the preview. So there you come to know that the exit employee whom you are going to terminate their wages or their full and final settlement should be done within 2 working days. So that was already defined under the Payment of Wage Act. Defined under the Payment of Wage Act 1936 that the exit, the employee who will be terminated and that the dismissed by the employer, you need to be make their payout within 2 working days. So that was already, but however, due to the loopholes and the different practices developed by the organization, the provision of the law was not come out in the picture. But however, the provision there, if you are not defining the payout or the period specifically and not making the payment whatever is due to an employee who has been worked even for the single day, so then there are the provision of 1 month imprisonment and fine up to 1,000 rupees. So when it comes to that, now you have make the payment to the employee. So then after, the businesses are specifically established for the generating of the profit. And then who is actually the profit generator for the organization? They are the workforce or the manpower who actually working on the floor or specifically on the product or as well as the operation or manufacturing process. So for that, there are the provision that the employer need to pay the bonus as the profit bonus to the employee. However, before 1965, there was no such provision related to the paying of the bonus to the employee who are working and who are that is surrendering their life or spending around half of their life for serving an organization. So that's why there was a provision made under the Payment of Bonus Act 1965 that the employer need to be pay minimum bonus of 8.33 to the employee for their wages every year as per the financial year. And however, this is applied for the organization who are engaging above than 20 or more employee. And furthermore, it is important for the organization, you need to be paid it. And furthermore, there is also one provision available. The new organization who are incorporated recently or within the period of 5 years, you are not eligible, you are not liable to make the minimum bonus also. But when it comes to the 6th year, you need to pay the minimum bonus to your employee. Then, if this obligation does not fulfilled by the employers, there is the provision of the 6 month imprisonment. However, the fine is not so big money for the organization. Okay, thank you. So now let's begin again. So after the bonus, specifically when the employer are required to pay the bonus to the every employee whom they are engaging as per the financial year. So then after it is the every employee and the organization they are expecting, they expect to every employee they are engaging for their businesses, they should be work and as well as they should be engaged with or retain with their organization till then the life has been the service period has been defined. But furthermore, what will be the motivation to them to work for a organization for the longer period? However, the many organizations they have some additional provision related to the retention and their policies, their provision. But however, as per the law are specifically defining the minimum eligibility and the minimum limited resources and the provision you need to be assured for the employee, or however it is specifically for the laborer class as well as the industrial laborer. So then it is defining by the payment of gratuity act 1972 that the employee or the workforce who are working for the organization and for the businesses, what should be motivation to them to work for a longer period to the organization. So that's why the payment of a gratuity concept and the enactment was enacted, or the payment of a gratuity act was enacted to facilitating and providing the specifically the service reward with the objective of paying the service reward to the employee who has worked for a longer period of time. So with this act, the minimum period was defining for this service reward for 5 years. And that one thing which I want to clear here, that the gratuity is only the one law which is giving or which is providing the statutory right to the employee who has been worked for the 5 years. They can claim the gratuity from the employer, and that need to be paid by the employer to such employee or those employees. So that's why the people or the professional who are into the managing the workforce, so they need to be make up to date the status of every employee, so that you cannot skip any employee who has been exit from the organization to paying them gratuity. So if these provision like that, the every employee, if he has been completed 5 years of service, you need to be pay them the gratuity as per the gratuity act 1972. It is their statutory right, they can claim it, you have to pay that. If not, these obligations are fulfilled, so there is the provision of 1 year of imprisonment to the employer and fine up till 1,000 rupees. But imprisonment is a big obligation for the employer. If any employer will be prisoned for even though the very limited period of time, so it will impact their image, their business, as well as their finance too. So addition to the gratuity, so now it come to the other primary laws, so that are the employee provident, that is the social security law, which is specifically providing the provision for the facilitating the retirement scheme for the employee who are in the industries and specifically the industrial workers. So, however, it is applied to the every organization, every employee, which are not exempted for the provision which has been provided. But furthermore, from the every industrial employee, the organization who are engaging. So the latest update is that it should be the 10 or more employee engaging. So you need to be comply with the regulation of the employee state, the Employee Provident Fund and the Miscellaneous Provision Act 1952. It is the retirement scheme specifically for securing the retirement and superannuation of the industrial worker, so that they can live their life freely after their retirement. So furthermore, there are the obligation for the employer that you need to be deduct, recover, and remittance that contribution which has been defined by the law. And there another somewhere we have also seen that sometimes the organization, they reduce their wages due to that the contribution shall be less for the employee or their cost will be lesser. So it is the bad practices and the illegal practices adopted by the organization, if any, that the payment for the or wages where you have deducting the EPFO contribution, it has been started one time, you cannot reduce that. Furthermore, there is the specifically ceiling provided. By the law, it is 15,000. So if the employee whose wages are above than 15,000 rupees, so you can deduct, recover, and remittance the contribution for the 15,000 only. And there are the many provision or however the maximum number of the organization, so they face the 7A and the 7Q cases due to the deduction, recovery, and remittance of the contribution, and that are also the big obligation for the organization. And there are the recovery, the provision of the recovery of all that amount from the back date with the interest rate from that date which is pending. So that's why you need to comply with the all regulation of the Employee Provident Fund, the Miscellaneous Provision Act 1952. If employer are not fulfilling the obligations under the Employee Provident Fund miscellaneous provision, however, they are not so big. One, you require to be registered, or you require to be registered your organization when there are 10 or more employees. And further, when it is registered, and you need to be deduct the contribution from their wages as per the prescribed norm, that is the 15,000 rupees, that the ceiling. And further, then you have to recover that amount and remittance that to the Employee Provident Fund organization. If these obligations are not fulfilled, so there is the provision of the 1 year of imprisonment to the employer and fine up to 5,000 rupees. But the imprisonment is one of the pain for the employer. And secondly, there are the another law which is specifically related to the social security, and this law is also covered under the Social Security Code 2020. So this is the providing the insurance facility to the industrial worker during their employment. So that is also similarly as per the EPFO. So you require to be registered your organization with the Employee State Insurance Corporation, and it is similarly applicable for the 10 and more employees. So then you have to the deduct, recover, and the remittance the contribution as per the provision which has been facilitated under the Employee State Insurance. And another thing is that every employee who are come into the purview of the Employee State Insurance Act. So there is the wage ceiling of 21,000, whose wages are below than 21,000. They need to be insured with the or under the provision of the Employee State Insurance Corporation Act. However, this act is also one of the advantage to the employer. So there is the compensation also, and the other facility like the great payment of the maternity also. So that will be regularize and pay out by the Employee State Insurance Act those members who are insured under the provision of this law, as well as who are doing the wages for less than 21,000 rupees. Similarly, there is also additional obligation under the law, that is the principal employer is the responsible for making or paying the contribution in the first instance under the Employee State Insurance Corporation Act 1948. So furthermore, if these obligations are not fulfilled by the employer, there is the provision of the 3 year of imprisonment and fine up to 10,000 rupees. So then after there are the another, when you have employed the individual and the employee, then you have to define the code of condition and condition of employment to them. So that is also regulated and referred from the or by the Industrial Establishment Standing Order Act 1946. However, it is specifically applicable for the factories where you require the certified standing order when there are the 10, 100 or more employees. But furthermore, you can also refer to the model standing order. So if these provisions are not fulfilled under the provision of the Industrial Establishment Standing Order Act 1946, there are also the provision of the punishment as well as the penalties. So that is defined up to 1,000 rupees under this act. So finally, it also the latest provision which are mandatory for every organization, and also the big ban for the organization that is related to the POSH Act 2013. So it is required for the every organization, even there are no female employee or worker available in the organization, you need to be comply with the regulation as for the POSH Act 2013. So there it is mandatory for every organization where you have to constitute the internal complaint committee. Then you have to frame the policy for prohibition, prevention, and redressal of the sexual harassment of women in the workplace. Then display that order that you have constituted the IC committee and along with their members, so it should be available for every members. And if there any complaint happen, their penal consequences, whatever come with the investigation or the inquiry by the presiding officer as well as the committee, so that you have also to display that at the notice board. Then it is also the obligation for the employer, then you have to provide the periodical educator training to the IC committee members. So however, there are the one external member required who can be the NGO member, who otherwise who can be the certified practitioner in the POSH Act, or otherwise he or she have the experience or working experience as the IC committee. So that should be one person or independent from the outside of the organization. Then after you have to organize the program, you means the employer need to organize the sensitization program for the periodical awareness of the every employee in your organization. Then the authority who will be regulate the provision of this act means the POSH Act 2013, so that is the district officer. So the employer are responsible to file or submit the report for the POSH Act related report annual basis to the district officer. And also the employer need to implement the recommendation of the internal complaint committee. If these provisions are not fulfilled by the employer, so there is the provision. However, the imprisonment provision are not there, but the fine will be imposed to the employer up till 1 lakh rupees, and the business license will also be cancelled. So these are the specifically the existing labor law, which is still have the pain point for the employer, and that is specifically in the impacting the image, business, and the finance of the employer. So then now it come to the when we have understand the existing law, its perspective, and the still the loopholes and the pain point for the employer. Now it come to the 4 new codes are coming and going to be implemented shortly, and what is going to be happen there, or when these 4 codes will be implemented, what will be changed in that, because still the pain point is with the existing law also available, but in the future, even though it is the one of it is said that it is one of the biggest historical reforms in the industrial labor law or the Indian industrial labor law history, but furthermore we will evaluate that what is going to be happen future. But before that, we need to be understand the how these 4 codes are established and enacted, what is the actual objective and the framework behind that. However, exactly or frankly saying, in these 4 new codes there is nothing new. Why I'm saying that there is nothing new? Because these 4 new codes are the resemblance and merger of the existing labor law. So there are the around 29 of existing central law or the central act related to the labor. So that has been merged with the 4 new codes. So that is the law specifically which are regulating, defining, and relation. Even though all those law who are regulating the wages and who have the connection with the wages, that all are merged with the wage code 2019. And the other existing labor law who have any relation with the industrial, who regulate, define the industrial relation, and provided the provision for the assuring or complying with the industrial relation provision in the industry. So all those existing labor law has been merged with the Industrial Relation Code 2020. Similarly, so there is the another code which is known as the Occupational Safety, Health, and Working Condition Code 2020. So there are all those existing labor law which define, regulate the working condition, the service condition, working hours, safety, health, that has been merged with the Occupational Safety, Health and Working Condition Code. And the fourth code, that is the Social Security Code 2020. And that is nothing new in that, or they are nothing done new. So that is all those existing labor law which regulate, define the social security, and which are connected with the provision of the social security, that all existing labor law has been merged with these four new codes. So that is the actual scenario and the picture of these four new codes. Now, question is coming. So maybe you have also this question: what will be happen then? So why it has been changed further, and what is its impact? So we will also analyze that. What is the impact going on based on the analysis we have done related to the existing labor law. So we have covered 8 or 9 or 10 number of the existing labor act and their pain point for the employer. Even when it is we it seems that it is the biggest reform for the industrial labor as well, the industrial law or the labor law. So it will have the lesser impact to the employer, and also which is given the statement and the definition that it is the reform for the and doing ease of business. So one important thing which I can confirm here, or I want to share with you, however, the as of now, the industry considering the or the professional who are into labor law, or specifically who are working as HR professional, they consider the labor law as the non-functioning or the only paperwork, so that the people are not interested in that. Or secondly, there are also the loopholes and provision which, because it was not so strict, there are only the provision of the 100 rupees fine for any obligation not fulfilled. So that's why there has been the wrong practices adopted by the organization. But in the future, here I'm giving one idea to you, it is going to be more impactful to the organization as it is with the existing labor. However, there is one bigger opportunity for the professional. It is giving you the opportunity to grow. So how that, I'm also sharing that with you. So now just understand the perspective which we say that there are the biggest reform of the historical reform in the Indian labor law. So in the, if we see from the top, that we can see that there are the historical reform, that is in the maintaining of the records and the documentation. So if we see the before and after, what will be happen, or what is exactly happening when we see with the existing labor law, as well as the when the four new codes will be come into picture, as well as the come for the implementation, we have to apply the regulation of the four new codes. So first of all, as per the existing labor law, there are around around 33 or 34 number of the law which apply to the organization. So here we have exemplifying as a factory. So there are around the 33 number of the existing law which are directly and indirectly apply to the factories. So with the 33 existing labor law, there you require to be maintain the records. You required to comply with the regulation to facilitate the provision. Then you require to obtain the prior approval, where we have specifically in the beginning divided the law into two, that principle and the true concept or the nature. That is one, the primary law, second one is the secondary law. So primary law is all those law which require the prior approval. So when we just have one concept understand related to the primary law where it required the approval. So there you required the certain approval as of now with the 5 and 6 existing labor law for specifically where you have to be that we obtain certain approval, prior approval from the authorities to facilitate the businesses in any premises, and then you have to maintain the record. If we see in the provision of the records with the existing labor law, so there are around 40 number of the record you require to be maintained. But when these four new codes will be implemented, it will be reduced for the 11 only. Then there are the periodically you have to submit the status of your compliance based on that you have obtained certain approval, as well as the secondary labor law are applicable and required to be facilitated in your organization. So then there are around the 22 numbers of the different returns you require to submit to the authority. But when these four labor laws will be implemented, so there will be only four return for each labor code you have to be submit to the authority and communicate to the authority. Then third, it come to the license. So as of now, So there are only the two number of license which require to be obtained. But when these four new codes will be implemented, so that it will be increased for three. Then there are the display. So there are, as of now, the every law which is existed or which required to be compliant with the regulation of the by the organization. So there you have to display the different notices as well as the abstract related to those laws. So there is the with the existing labor law, it is the 20 number of the abstract and the notices you require to be displayed. But further, when these four new codes will be implemented, it will be just 13 number. So instead of 20, you have to display the notices and abstract for the 13 number. Then the registration. As of now, it is for the five existing law that the Act required the registration for the industries. But when these four new codes will be implemented, it will be reduced for the three. But however, the remittance will be remain same to the for the ESIC and EPFO. So this is in the first instant that what is going to be changed in the scenario when these four new codes will be applied. But now, here, what is happening, the actual perspective that you have to maintain the record, that the record will be lesser. But now, there is the other bigger point and bigger pain for the employer. How is that? So just understand it here. So first, we are covering that the wage code 2019. So that wage code 2019 is the merger of the four existing labor act. So that is the Payment of Wage Act 1936, the Minimum Wage Act 1948, and the Payment of Bonus Act 1965 and Equal Remuneration Act 1976. These four laws are existing. You are complying with the regulation. And if you are not complying, or if by mistake you forget to comply, however, the out of 100 there are around only that the 5 or 6% of the organization who are practically complying with the regulation. So otherwise the other organization, they have some different means for complying with on the document. But furthermore, the actually if the compliance is not there and the obligation under these existing labor law are not fulfilled, what can be happen? So there will be the imprisonment and the little bit fine also. But when these four new codes will be implemented, so in connection with the wages or these four new codes, what is going to be changed? If any obligation which the organization are not fulfilled, that fine with the existing labor law, that can be imposed to an employer 500 rupees. That has been increased for the 20,000 rupees minimum, and the maximum, which was 20,000 rupees, it will be imposed to the employer 50,000 rupees. However, the imprisonment provision has been removed from the Code on Wages 2019, which earlier was available up till 6 months. But now, just imagine if there are the five number of the compliances are not fulfilled by the employer. So the employer have to pay around 2,50,000 rupees to the agencies for just for a 1 day inspection when they will impose or the give you the non-conformity for the non-fulfillment of the obligation. It is only for the wage code. So then it comes to the another code, so that is the industrial relation code. And in this industrial relation code, the existing labor law has been more, that is the Industrial Employment Standing Order, that is the Industrial Dispute Act 1947 and the Trade Union Act 1926. However, with these existing three Labor Act, there was no provision of the imprisonment, and fine was a minimum 100 rupees and maximum 5,000 rupees will be or can be imposed to an employer if the obligation are not fulfilled. But when the industrial relation code will be implemented, so there the fine, which was 100 rupees minimum, so that has been increased for the 50,000 rupees, and a maximum 2 lakh rupees fine will be imposed to the employer for a single obligation not fulfilled. So now, just example. For example, there will be the five number of the obligation which will found by the agency that are not fulfilled. So there will be the direct financial impact to the employer for 10 lakh rupees. So now just consider that can your employer pay 10 lakh rupees for the agencies just for a 1 day visit and not complying because they have already engaged any representative as a professional in the organization who is responsible for the assuring the compliance, or otherwise one vendor from outside who have to ensure the compliance. And then there the additionally the provision of the imprisonment also added for the industrial dispute, the provision which are already existing with the Industrial Dispute Act 1947, the up till 1 year. So that is also increasing the additional pain point under the Industrial Dispute Act. So similarly, it come to the third labor code, so that is the Social Security Code 2020, where the 7 or 8 number of the existing labor act has been merged, which regulate and define the social security. So that is maybe the compensation, your the state insurance, then the employee provident fund, that is the maternity benefit, the payment of gratuity, then the building and other construction worker welfare cess, as well as the employment exchange compulsory notifications also. But as per these existing labor law, which is existing as of today, so there are the provision for non-fulfillment of obligation, which will be in the form of the penalties, and which can say the punishment also. That is the minimum fine can be imposed to the organization, that is 500 rupees, and maximum 20,000 rupees, and imprisonment minimum 3 months to 3 years maximum in the different cases or the different scenario. Then when this new code, the Social Security Code 2020, will be implemented, what is going to be happen in this actual scenario, which is directly impacting the employer? So the fine, which as per the existing labor law or the labor act, that is 500 rupees, that will be imposed 50,000 rupees minimum to the employer for a single obligation, and maximum it is 1 lakh rupees. So again, you can also exemplify it, and for the 5 cases or 5 number of the non-fulfillment obligations, so it will be cost for an organization 5 lakh rupees. And additionally, so there is the provision of imprisonment, that is the minimum 6 months and maximum 3 years will be imposed to the organization. So then come it to the another, the most important, the labor code, that is related to defining the occupational safety, health, and working condition code 2020. So that is also the merger of the different existing labor law. So that is like for the factories, the Factories Act, then for mines, the Mine Act, then the Dock Worker Act, then building and other construction work contract labor, interstate migrant, and the sale promotion. So all of these provisions or existing labor law are merged with the Occupational Safety, Health, and Working Condition Code 2020. So with the provision of these existing labor law, what is the impact to the employer if the obligation are not fulfilled? So there is the provision for the minimum 500 rupees fine and maximum 1 lakh rupees. And imprisonment condition or the provision is there, the minimum 3 months and a maximum 2 years of imprisonment can be imposed to the employer. But when this code on the occupational safety, health, and working condition will be implemented, so the scenario is going to be totally changed. The minimum fine for a single obligation is the 500 rupees, that has been increased for 50,000 rupees, and the maximum, which was only 1 lakh rupees, so that is increased for the 5 lakh rupees. And imprisonment, it has been up till 2 years, so you can also consider this maximized and straight for 2 years. So now if there are any 5 numbers of the obligation which are not fulfilled, and the agencies or the specifically the authority, they are imposing the fine for these 5 number of the obligation, so it will be cost to the employer instantly 25 lakh rupees. Thus, your employer will pay 25 lakh rupees for not fulfilling the compliance, because he has been already assigned a responsible person, or he has been appointed one responsible person or representative for complying with these regulations. So what will be happen now? Who can help the organization? So you have to be well prepared for implementation of these laws, so there cannot be any single loophole available with the organization, so that you cannot comply or non-compliance of the obligation there. So for that, you have to be learn the perspective as well as the concept and the strategies how you have to comply with it in the future. So this program is basically designed on that similar perspective, where you have to develop the concept. So in this program, we are going to be develop that concept in the section second. And for that, we have different scenario created that first it is required to be build your concept. So similarly, before that, here is one representation for you based on the analysis we have done for these four new codes. So there are also the certain things which is known as the reforms, the biggest reform. So that is only the one reform. So that can be in the form of the definition for wage. However, as per the existing labor law, with the different labor, there are around 33 number of the existing labor law which are applied to the, we are talking about, or exemplifying the manufacturing, because in the manufacturing sector or factories, the maximum number of the labor laws applied and that are critically applied, and the organization, they need to be comply it with their organization and premises. So what is the reform? So the biggest reform is that the new codes has been given a uniform definition. However, that definition has been given a new concept, and that concept also impacting the organization in the financial as well as the employee also in the financial terms. So how? First of all, that the earlier with the existing labor law, there are the 16 different types of definition provided for the wages. However, with this new code, the wage code, there has been one uniform definition defined for the every four codes. So that is, there should be the basic pay, dearness allowances, as well as the retaining allowances. However, under the law, the wages are considered as the gross wage. It is not the concept of the corporate concept of the your CTC. It is the gross wage. So there will be your basic and dearness allowances, then the retaining allowances. And now the new concept which has been introduced with these with the wage code specifically, your compliance wage or the regulation where you have to comply for the four new codes, it will be the basic wage should be 50% of your gross wage. So gross wage definition is the basic pay, dearness allowances, and your retaining allowances. It's 50% will be your basic pay, and every four codes, its regulation will be considerable and apply to that wage. When this 50% wage concept will be implemented, it will impact the employer and employee financially. How? For employer, it will increase the cost, and for employee, it is going to be reduce the cost, because there are the many that the social security code where the contribution are deducting, that is based on the basic wage or the basic salary. So as of now, so there is the basic salary based on the minimum wage. So that minimum wage is very minimal, and for that there are the lesser contribution the employer are paying. But when this concept will be implemented, the employer have to pay higher amount of the contribution for the like EPFO and ESIC, so it will impact them. However, we will also have one scenario where exactly it will impact and how you have to prepare. Then there are the provisions separately defined for the definition for the worker and the employee. So class has been divided. However, with the existing labor law, there has been class given to the worker only, but now the class of employee has been added and the concept has been inserted with the four new codes. Then the concept of the that the floor wages has been adopted and introduced in the wage code 2019, and based on that, the minimum wage will be defined by the state. Then the definition for the contractor and contractual labor has been clarified in these four new codes. Then the provision related to the period and the payment of wage, that has been revised. However, there are the two, that's the Payment of Wage Act 1936, which is defining specifically that the employer have to define the payout, how they have to make the payment to the employee. But now it has been inserted or specifically provided in the new code that the wages should be paid to every employee within the seventh day of the succeeding month for the pay period. Then there is the provision of the standing order, which is for the 100. It has been increased for the 300 now. The grievance redress committee provision required to be established in every organization where there are 20 or more employee engaged. Those there are the provision of the aggregator also introduced in these new codes. Then the reduction of the gratuity period also there. However, earlier it is a 5 year. With the new codes, it has been reduced for the 3 year. Then one additional responsibility has been assigned to the employer related to the health of the individual employee. So the organization, they need to provide the free annual health checkup to every employee in the organization free of cost. Then the other than this, there are the provision of the leaves, so the new concept has been introduced. However, earlier there are the leaves like the casual and simply maximum organization. They left that if the employee does not apply or consume those leaves within the year. So the concept has been inserted that the sick leave and casual leave now can be encashed or will, no, it is not can, it required to be encashed, and that can also be carried forward up till 30 numbers. Then there are the provision. However, earlier the employment of women was not allowed after 7 p.m. and before 6 a.m. So it has been provided the provision under the law that the female can be allowed after or beyond 7 p.m. or before 6 a.m. But the organization need to assure their safety, security, welfare, as well as their to and fro commutation. Then the another concept is also there. However, the organization, there are also still many loopholes that organization are developing the concept of the 12 working hours. But with the new codes, it has been provided that if you are engaging an employee on the overtime, you required their consent and you have to pay the double payment to them. So these are the different provisions coming out from what is the reforms going to be, or what are the reforms actually done, and what is going, how it is going to be impact the industries in the future when these four codes will be required. So most probably you require to be prepared. First of all, the law are maximum applied to on the basis of the wages, so that you need to be prepared your organization and yourself for implementation of your four new codes with the wages. So for that, we have here that prepared one concept for you, how you can analyze your wage concept in your organization and what you have to do when this new concept of the wage, the basic wage, 50% of the gross wages will be applied. So here is one presentation and the working for you that will help you to implement the concept in your organization, where you will analyze, evaluate your wage concept, and you can make it balance or restructure your wage specifically for the new concept of wages which require to be applied by the organization with the referring of these four new codes. So here is just understand this concept, what is going to be happen and how you have to be prepared when these four new codes will be implemented. However, as of now, the minimum, it is based on the defined by the government, state government specifically, the minimum wage. So as of now, the concept of the minimum wage is with the two component. One is the basic wage, second one is the dearness allowances. This is included in the basic wage. So it will be all into the one component. However, we are bifurcating it to, because it is the two different concept added with it. When you have to pay it to the employee, it should be only in one component. So when it comes to the scenario where the concept will impact the organization, that the 50% of the wage. So now just have a look for related to the provident fund. So what will be happen when this new concept will be implemented? So if you are paying the minimum wage to the employee, and that in the state the minimum wage is around 8,000 rupees, and further you are paying the house rent allowances also, the total wages is 1,200 rupees. However, the concept, there is the ceiling of 15,000 rupees. But further, if we see in the scenario of the basic wage, the PF you are paying as of now, that is the 960 rupees. But when this 50% concept will be applied, then you have to pay it the around 1,440 rupees for the every employee whose wages are less than that the minimum wage which has been prescribed. Not a minimum wage, it is the with the 50%, which is with the ceiling of the 15,000, and the minimum wage, because if you are taking up the minimum wage for the basic, then if the scenario two, if the 12,000 rupees, which is the minimum wage, you are putting that in the basic, and then total wage is 20,000 rupees as per the concept of the latest concept under the EPFO, where is the ceiling of 15,000 rupees, you have to pay the 1,800 rupees. But in that scenario, what will be happen? Will not impacting the financially to the employer. It will be help the organization financially, that here they will save some money from the contribution which they have to pay to the EPFO. So it will be only on the basic or the minimum wage, and secondly, it will be higher than the 50% of wages. Then it is the third scenario where your wages are 24,000 and the minimum wage is 12,000 rupees. So you have to pay only the 1,440 rupees with this new concept. Similarly, if you are dealing with the international worker, so it will also be helpful to the organization that the contribution for the EPFO for the international worker, you have to be deduct it on the 50% of their total. However, as of now, it is on the full wages. But now, when this four codes will be implemented, so the contribution will be on the basic wage, which you have to be divided the 50% of their total wages. So then next one, so that is the related to the retirement as the under the provision of the social security. So what is going to be happen there is under the social security. So there are the gratuity specifically. So gratuity as of now it is on the basic wage. So for the gratuity, what is going to be happen? So as of now, it will be calculated on the current basic wage. When the concept of the basic wage will be 50% of the gross wages, then in the case of the gratuity, it will be increased for the employer as well as the employee. So it will impact financially the employer, because you have to pay now the higher gratuity for your employee. Then it is related to the, like, you have to pay the compensation in case of retrenchment, closure, under the industrial relation code. So as of now, for the perspective of the labor law, the wages are specifically the gross wages. So as per the gross wages, you have to pay the compensation. So for example, for the 3 year, there are the certain formulation, but for example, we understand it here, you have to pay around 1,40,000 rupees and 42,500 rupees. But when the concept of the 50% basic wage will be introduced, so it will also help the organization to reduce that money or help that they will save certain. So it is around half of the compensation employer required to be paid. So similarly, there you can also, it will also helpful to you. Then you have the employee who come in the provision of the income tax, so you can also define that. So this is the template which will be reached to you as it is for your understanding and learning, so that you can analyze your wage structure in your organization and define it according to the new concept before these concept of the new codes will be implemented, so that you can be ready for that. So this is the template which will be reached to you for your learning and future references. It was all about related to the section 1, so where we have analyze the perspective of the present labor law, its issue, its loophole, and how these existing labor law has been merged with the new four codes, and what are the changes inserted in the new four codes, and how they are going to be impact the organization. And similarly, it will also impact even though that is the opportunity for the professional, it will help them to tremendously grow that. But you have to be learn the concept, you have to be well educated for that, so that you can apply or comply with the regulation as strictly which required, as which is defined under the different labor law. So now, welcome you in the section 2, and section 2 is specifically where we are practically developing a statutory or labor law compliance management portfolio, that how you can comply the regulation of the different codes which are going to be implemented in the future, and how strategically, without creating that haphazard, that you can develop a system and that standardize your compliance system in your organization and assure every compliance in your organization that complies as per the regulation. So before going into the section second, so here is the time for a break because we have spent 1.5 hours. So now here is the quick break for 10 minutes. So it is 5:33. So we will be come back by 5:43. Then we will be start with the practical learning about the labor law compliance management portfolio, how you can develop the new concept as well as the standardized strategic concept in your organization where easily you can comply with the every regulation of the labor law compliance. However, there are many tools I'm going to share with you how you can welcome you back. Sorry, I stuck with some important calls, so that's why it took additional 5 minutes break. So now let's start with the section 2. And section 2 is specifically the practical learning section where we will develop a statutory compliance or the labor law compliance management portfolio, how you can strategically comply the every existing as well as the future labor law that develops the standardization system in your organization. So that concept we are developing here, and that is the ready to use template we will share with you that you can utilize for the future. So this compliance management portfolio is based on the three different pillars, and that pillars are specifically based on a structure, then the process and the reporting. That is the important parts. When you function with this portfolio, it will help you to grow and build your credibility in the organization, also help you that you does not have to make the extra efforts for complying with the actual regulation when any inspection happen for your organization. This will also, if you implement this concept as well as learn thoroughly about this concept, it will also strengthen your future HR career base. It will give you the unique selling proposition also so that you can brand yourself as a specialist in the future and demand a money as you wish. Because in the future, the labor law compliance specialist demand is growing tremendously in the industries. So now, based on the labor law compliance management portfolio, as we have mentioned here, it has a three based on the three pillar structure. So in that, in the first structure, we are going to learn about its structure. So first of all, when you have to comply with a law or the labor law specifically, so you need to understand its structure. In the beginning, we have discussed that the nature of the labor law that are the based on its primary as well as the secondary applicability. So primary laws are those laws which require any prior approval by the organization to comply with its regulation and facilitate its provision in the organization. Then it comes to the secondary law are those laws, however, that are the important also, but does not require any prior approval. So similarly, when you have to go with the compliance provision for all the applicable law or act which is applied to your industry, so you need to be first of all evaluate them based on its structure. So structure have the three layers. First one, that are the primary law where you require the approval, but the secondary law does not require any prior approval from the authorities. But further, there you have to facilitate them too. Then the second layer is the maintaining of the records of those provision of the law which has been instructed with the approval, and the other primary the secondary law are applicable for your organization, so you need to be facilitate its provision in your organization and maintain the records for those provisions you are facilitating them. Then third layer is then you have to submit or share the status of the compliance as well as the facilitation of those law. The it is the periodical basis. Somewhere it is this with some law it is required annual basis, somewhere it is a half yearly basis, somewhere it is with some law it is the quarterly basis, or somewhere it is the monthly basis. So accordingly, you have to submit the compliance status that is in the form of return, which is known as returns as well as the remittance also. That is what that is your compliance status which has been prescribed under the different labor law which is applicable for you And for that, you have to submit the status of those compliances, its provision you are facilitating to the authority, you are assuring the provision of these law. However, why you required to be submit that? Because the every law which is defining specifically, even though the labor law, so that is the specifically focusing and protecting the three objectives or three rights of the laborer or the industrial worker, that is health, welfare, and safety. So all that provision which has been defined and prescribed under the law that come in the broad perspective of the welfare, health, and safety of the employee. So that's why you have to submit the periodical status of the compliance to the authority in forms of the different returns or the remittance also. Then now what you have to do and what you are going to be learn here based on the concept. So here specifically here is one master template we have prepared for you that will help you in developing of that first skill. The first skill is becoming more vigilant in form and relation to the different applicable labor law. So what is that and how that the master compliance, that the statutory compliance master work out and how you can resemble it and resemblance it in your workplace and helping your organization as well as yourself to building that credibility and the vigilance for the assuring 100% compliance in your organization. So here I'm sharing it with you right now what you have to do and how it will help you to comply with the norms of the different labor law. So it is here, it is the your master template for representing all your basic as well as the progressive and the process. And finally, it is the result of your labor law compliances, which will make you the vigilant and foresighted. How? We have divided it on based on the three layer of your structure. One is your approval. Second is your records, and the third one is your remittance in form of the returns. So what you have to do, because whatever the applicable labor law where you required the prior approval, you need to be incorporate. However, for the factory purpose, we have also covered all that applied in the primary law where you required the prior approval or any consent and authorization that we have added here. And however, if you are dealing with the multi-location, so that you can also add up there, then you further the next level of process, what you have to do, your corrective action, your future plan, what is going to be happen there, so that you have to be put it in. So that is only the one pager. You can take print out of this whole pager on the A3 page, and then you can paste it or display it at your desktop. It will make you more vigilant and foresighted what you have to do next, what are the actionable you required to do to achieve the 100% compliance in your organization. Similarly, it is for the remittance or specifically the return. So under the for the factory, so there are the different types of the act available. So we have divided based on the annual calendar where the different types of the compliance activity you have to be furnished. But this is the regulating as well as the monitoring work. It is after the every process when you have initiated the process and you have reached to the practical that you have complied with that, then this is the final output. You have to be resemble that in this one template which can help you to become vigilant and be foresighted related to the future actions. So then there are the in perspective or in reference to the factories. So there are the different regular. So here is the that you have to regularly, even though that is the not regularly, it is the periodical, even though it is the monthly, that quarterly, half yearly, and annually, biannually, you have to submit the compliance status. So in what month, in which date, and what are the frequencies, so you have to incorporate that. However, it may be differ in the state to state, but it can be utilized in every state. We have evolved it accordingly. You just have to check out specifically for your state. There's a form number and the somewhere the dates are similar in all the states throughout India. Then further, the person of concern who will be responsible for that and in which month you require to be comply with such the remittance of the not the contribution, it is the remittance of your that the return and the compliance status in your organization. Then the third section that is related to the records and the display. So that under the different act, what are the different record you require to be maintained and what is their frequency and who will be the responsible person and how you have to monitor that and their status, so you can mark it here in the month to month when you have finished it. However, this program is going to be make you and build you administrator also, so there will be the subordinate who will be help you, but you have to initiate this template there so that you can assure every compliance in your organization. So there are also the different displays which are required under the different provision of the level of which will be applicable. So what is their frequency? So accordingly, who will be responsible for that, and then how you are going to be monitored them for the future. So this is the most important template which will help you at final when you develop the practically you have evaluate, you have analyzed, inspect, and then finally assuring every compliances. Then after this is the monitoring tool, day-to-day monitoring or the specifically when the period and the frequency is there, it is the monitoring tool for you which you have to display at your desktop so that you can assure every compliance in the organization. So this is specifically, first of all, the structure. You have to understand the structure here where it is the three layer of structure. One is your the approval which required you need to obtain prior to the commencing of any business in a premises. Then according to that, when the approval has been granted to the organization, then you have to maintain, facilitate the provision of that approvals, and then you have to maintain the record of that in the form of different register as well as the record. Then you have to submit the regular compliance or periodical compliance status to the authority in the form of the different returns. So this is the first pillar of your compliance management portfolio. Then it comes to the second pillar. So second pillar is the now the process, how you have to comply with the regulation. It is the process and it is the most important and most critical work for the people where they took or mistaken. So that's why there, as of now, there are no such implication is in fine and imprisonment, but further when these four new codes will be implemented, that the under table cannot be work because you have to assure the compliance in your organization. Otherwise, it will be impact financially your organization. And secondly, your employer never allow the representative or any HR professional or any person who is responsible for the compliance, they pay the 25 lakh rupees to the agents or the government for as the fine for not complying of the regulation. So that's why you need to be assured practically and every provision of the law how you have to comply that. So here specifically we have prepared for you one of the broad template and every perspective we have covered with how you have to go with the process of your compliance management or the portfolio in your organization. However, that is also based on the three layers. So first of all, it is on the first layer, the internal compliances. So it can be done by yourself itself. And for that, you require the certain tool how you can go for the internal compliances, where you have to evaluate your current status as per the required regulation, the provision, and then the current status, how much you are complying with your organization. Then the second layer is specifically for the agencies. So this is agencies, we have divided it in the two parts. One is when the you are engaging the manpower through the third party for the contractor, and the Contract Labor Act 1970 is making responsible the principal employer that you have to assure all the compliances related to the contractor with the supervisor of the principal employer. So, and second is the agencies when you are working a labor law compliance facilitator as well as you are working as the labor law compliance service provider to your compliance. So that the concept we have designed here for that, how you can go with agency compliance. Then third one, the actually mostly what we have seen in the organization, the people who are responsible for the managing of the level of compliance, they assure the compliances for their management, because the law does not define that your organization, whatever your internal processes is, that it is applied to the every organization same, which the processes has been developed by the authorities or with the law. So accordingly, you need to be comply with the regulation for the authorities perspective. So that concept we are here also developing, so that additionally here I'm sharing one additional tool with you that will help you to comply with the above than the 100%, and you can walk one step ahead to the government agencies. And when they visit for an inspection to your premises, and that time you can counter with that tool to agencies if they initiate any NC or non-conformity for the non-fulfillment of the your compliance in the organization. So first of all, what you have to do that you how you have to find any tool for that comply your organization and the status of your compliance. So for that we have prepared one broad template where we have covered around 29 of the existing level of which covering of the factories specifically. However, that is relevant for the other industries too, even that a shop and commercial establishment, that is the plantation, that is the mines also. So it can be covered all that. But you have to do with this template, you just have to evaluate or inspect or specifically have the audit of your current status of your organization or your premises, your companies, a level of compliance perspective. How much you are complying with. So there you have to be collect the actual status and what is the point that are not fulfilled. So how you have to utilize this format. So here now I'm sharing that. So here is this one of the bigger template and the majorly the how to process your internal compliance and specifically evaluate your organizational compliance status with the required perspective. So here, this is one of the broad template as the checklist for the organization, how they have to evaluate the status of their compliance as per the required regulation by the law. So what we have done there here, we have covered around 29 of the existing labor law which are covering maximum number of the regulation related to the applied labor law for the organization. So there we have covered every perspective with the rule and its section where you require to be comply with. So this have around 40 number of pages, and collectively it has around 29 number of the existing labor law covering its perspective and its compliance and its requirement with the organization, so that you can understand it here for the like in factories in which section what is required to be. This is based on the government or the agency's regulation and their procedure, so that you can comply with your organization according to their procedure. And then in which section the agency they will specifically inspect your provision in your premises or facility, and what are their references required, and that the compliance status you have to be mark it here based on that under the section what is required, and then you have to be mark it here what is your current status based on that. Then you have to put the concerned department, if there are the many department or section in the organization who is responsible for facilitating of these provision of the law, so that you have to input. Then the person in charge responsible for that particular task which required to be complied with, then their periodicity or the frequency. Then if any remarks you require to be some that put in that, you can also put for the future references. Then the next step or the action countermeasure, and for particular time you have to be complete or fulfill these provision of the law, so that you can also utilize. And secondly, then last, you can also get the consent of those all the people who are responsible for assuring the compliance in your organization. However, when you are developing the level of compliance portfolio in your organization, so best way is that you have to initiate the compliance committee in your organization. So that should be your senior level of people, 2 and 3 from the different departments, who will give you the third party views related to or opinion related to the compliance of the regulation of the labor law in your premises or in your organization. So that will also help you to getting all that task done as the due date you have defined. So this template will be reached to as it is where you have to utilize this. This is the required. It is specifically every state has been same requirement under the provision of the factories as well as the other relevant and the secondary law available for the factory. So you just have to evaluate your organization, the status, what is the current status, it is compliant or not. If it is not complying, then you have to define which department is responsible for that and who will be the person of in charge who have to complete that task or comply with the regulation. Then you have to define the periodically or periodicity when it was required to be compliant, but it is still not required. It still does not comply, so that accordingly you have to initiate your course of action. So this is the one of the broad template when you have to go with the evaluation or inspecting auditing process of your compliance. So now let's move with the next one. So this is the broad that the perspective as well as the template and picture how you can evaluate you and get the actual status of your organization. Based on this master template, when you identify the current status, and in that current status, there may be many points which are required to be complete or comply. So what you can do at now, the next level. So it come to the debtor, the internal compliance, how you have to comply it now. So here is the another template, what you have to do for further to comply the other remaining points which are still open based on your audit and inspection. So here I'm sharing that with you also. This is the another template. So now what you have to do, so it is when you identify that open point, so what now you have to basically, now you have to structure that the open points, then you have to divide in the different, you have to create a planner now for that related to the provision of the law which we have defined. So this template you can utilize as it is. So there is the, like it is a factory, so what are the provision or which are the open point you are now identified that you require to be compliant. So what is that exactly you require to be compliant with? So you have to define a day or the due date for that when you require to be compliant. So based on that, you have to create a plan, and that plan in the month basis in which way date or in particular month that you have to be compliant with, you have to initiate the action for that. Then you have to monitor the status of that, then that you have to be define the actual status. So when you have to initiate it, then in the remarks you can put the different types of the actions you require to fulfill that particular compliance or the open point which is not compliant for your organization. Similarly, there are the different types of the document, and if that are not fulfilled, the records are not maintained, so that you can utilize similarly that with the planner. So you can incorporate all that open area with the plan when you have to require, then you have to monitor that is that exactly that has been completed or compliant within the defined period you have defined for that. But the due date, it should not be as per the government. So it should be as per your plan where you require. So there should be the buffer time for 5 to 10 days when it is, if it is related to the compliance for the government agencies, then submitting of the return. But you have to be initiate it your own day as reasonable or as prescribed or as simple that you can complete the task with the other tasks also. So you have to give that, but it should be ideally that which does not require too much time. It ideally then also represent your working to, then accordingly you have to put the due date for that. Then now you have that planner, you have to monitor it, then you have to verify it here when you are or you have completed that task. So this template will be reached as it is for your future references. Then it comes to the next one. So the next is the layer number two. So that is the agency compliances. So agency compliances we have divided in the two parts. So first one is you have the vendor, you have the manpower through the outsourcing that contractor. Now you have to comply with the regulation of the Contract Labor Act 1970. So what you have to do for that? So similarly, when you have to identify the open point and the uncompliance requirement or the provision of the law, you have to go with that broad perspective and the broad template which we have prepared and which we have shared with you here. Then you have to identify it for yourself. But now it comes to the agencies. So what you have to do for the agencies? So here I'm sharing the template with you, what you have to do for the agencies. So you have to go for the auditing the provision of the agencies related to the compliance and the provision under the Contract Labor Act. What are the compliance required for the contractor? So here in this template, it is also the planner and it is the like the where you have to inspect specifically or audit the compliance status of your vendors. You can utilize it for the vendors also. If you are the service provider, you can utilize it for your compliance or for your clients too. So what it is for the contractor labor, and then under the provision of the contract labor, what are the compliance required that you have to incorporate here? Then what is the due compliance that you have to initiate here? Then you have to identify the status. You have to identify the status, but where you have to check these the due status, so that we have been shared with you the master checklist. We have been shared with you like that. You have to pick all the points we have covered. That the main template which I have been shared with you, so that you have to incorporate it. Then you have to evaluate or inspect the current status based on these requirements. What are your findings? You will utilize it here, and then your next action and further. What is the action required to fulfill all those non-compliance? You have to take it and further. What is the additional step you require to be initiated? That is, you have to start the ideal practice is that quarterly compliance update and checking or auditing for your agencies and contractors, so that they can comply all the provision of the law which are applicable to them. So this template will be reached to you as it is, so that you can utilize it in the future for preparing your compliance management portfolio for your organization and assuring the 100% compliance for your organization. Then it comes to the third layer. So third layer is specifically, now it is the important, which I have mentioned also sometime, or max out of 100 there are the 90%, 90+% of the organization or the representative who has been deployed and appointed for the compliance purpose. They assure the compliances for their management to appealing or appeasing their management. But when the government agencies come for the inspector, then their compliances are zero. And then finally what happened? Even though the employer, they kicked out those people, or otherwise they left them then by themselves. So further here in the future, there is the demand specifically for the labor law compliance people. You have to learn this practically, and then you have to ensure a system of the compliance management in your organization, so that you can secure your career also, and further you can build a unique selling proposition for you and brand yourself as the specialist, as a labor law compliance domain in the future. So now what you have to do, and what is the specifically related to the labor department or authorities when they visit, and all that the concept we have developed here, it is based on the government authorities, their provision, how they comply with the, what are their provision for comply the regulation under the provision of the labor law. However, this is from the state specific. Every government agencies, they have the same system. It will be help you as a references, and further it will help you to assuring the compliance in your organization, and this will also help you if the agencies come to your place for inspection, and if you have compliance with the previously I have been shared the template and the procedure based on this template, as well as the based on this formulation which we are going to share with you today, so that you can counter to them. However, working with this concept, you can walk one step ahead to them how they are, because this is we are going to be, we have shared with you that how the agencies work, and based on that you have to comply with the regulation of the law in your organization. So exactly what is here in the first, in the process I have been shared with you, one of the broad perspective or the broader template where we have covered around 27 of the existing labor law with the regulation, their provision. So that is based on this internal system of the government agencies, what they do, what are their procedure, then the inspection procedure and the criteria, how they proceed for the inspection and what is their criteria for the industries. So based on that, we have been facilitated that master checklist or the template for you where you have to audit your organization with this broad purpose. And the second step is that when you identify that compliance area and the open point, then you have to further make a planner or action planner to how you have to be complete all those open holes and comply with those regulations. Then third one, then you have to update specifically your the master top template at your desktop, which you are displaying in which we have shown in the structure. That will be give you the two skills, that is vigilant and the for making you foresighted and then accountable and responsible. Now, what we have covered up in that you have seen in the previous template. So this is coming from here, and specifically, so under this, if it is related to the factories or any act, so under section, what will be required by the authorities, what they will be inspect, and according to the rule. So it is for the specific state rule, and you can also cover up for the central also, but this state specific rule, what is required for that? So what is required to be under that rule that you have to check out that. So in that organization, it is applicable for you or not, it is compliant or not, it is not compliant. So it will be based on that. So you have to be follow the same principle for complying your organization, even that is the internal compliances, that is the your agency compliance. When you comply with this concept, you will assure 100% compliance in your organization. So this is the another template which will be reached to as it is for your working as well as the for your future references, who can so you can utilize these templates for the practically learning with your organization when you are implementing this labor law compliance management portfolio. Then it comes to the third pillar of your labor law compliance management portfolio. That is specifically the now you have to report, because you are an employee, you are working for a money, you also require to be progress in your area or in your career. So earlier, which we have seen in the maximum number of the organization where the representative who are responsible for the labor law compliances, they comply the regulation. They comply the regulation in the documents only and present it to the employer that they have been complied with all. When there is any inspection happen, and that time the compliance is zero and then kicked out. But here, the template we are sharing with you how you have to present your compliance status, because when you have established this platform as well as the labor law compliance management portfolio, it will automatically represent your working to your management, because you have developed a system in your organization that work automatically now. And furthermore, but there are the many platforms in the where you require to on monthly basis, annual basis, quarterly basis to represent the progress of your work to your management. And secondly, that your management, that are the business people, they does not have the time to spend with you for hours to understanding that what you have done in the law or the labor law compliance. So here I'm sharing with you the one pager template, and that template will help you to provide you the or present your status of work. So what you have to do, this is only the one pager template which we are sharing. This is based on your structure, so that status you have to be shared with your employer, because they does not have time to spend hours in with you. So this can be help you to present all you working within 5 to 10 minutes then the smartest way. So what you have to do, so here we have divided in the as per the structure in the approval, what is required and what is the status, then the in the form of this submission of your compliance status and the different records you require to be maintained. If you are specifically working on the or dealing with the different locations, so you can also add up those locations to differently or otherwise in this one template also. Then you have to put your actionable and the points why that the compliance is not fulfilled and why that is not fully compliant. So that this is the one template which can be help you to present all that working status to your management within 5 to 10 minutes. If they ask that what exactly you have done and how you have done, so you can present with the particular scenario. So we have also incorporated all that. Basically, the crimes that the template we have shared in the beginning, so that is also resembled here. So you have to be incorporated. It is based on the due time when in the present you are at the present moment, like it is in the 22 January. So for December compliance, you have to present. So it can be the December here where you are presenting the compliance status. Then all that records previously for the covering month or how many months has been passed, so that you can add up their the current status, so that it can be even they want to check with the previous also how it's going on, so you can present that similarly to your organization and in the same platform. So this is only for the 5 pager, but is the important is the only that where you have to be put the solution, because organization or the management, they are looking for the solution, they are not looking for your process, they are not looking, they have been appointed you, they have been represented, they are the representative, you are the representative of them, so that they are expecting the solution from you. So this template will help you to build the credibility and confidence with your organization. Then addition to this template, we have another template prepared for you, that is the broad dashboard, how you can comply with the every provision of the law where you does not require. Prepare one the dashboard where we have input around 23 number of the existing labor law, how you have to comply with the regulation, what are the provisions required. So just give me a while. So it is here. So here we have covered around 23 number of the existing law, what are the provisions, how it will be work for you. Like this is the contract labor. So in which form, what is the regulation required, what are the item required, then the in this which section it has been prescribed, and what is the schedule and submission. So you does not require to go for any books, any law specifically to broadly checking out that what you require. So we have added all that are required and prerequisite which required to be complied with the regulation of the law in this broad templates. There are around 23 number of the existing labor law that we have provided the proof that this dashboard will be reached to you as it is, so that you can comply the every norm and the regulation of the existing. This is the three different pillar of your labor law compliance portfolio. What you have to do, first of all, you have to start with the structure, understanding the structure, that it is the 3 layer of structure which require it is the approval. Then you have to maintain the records, and then you have to submit the periodical compliances and the status of compliance to the authority. Then it come to the second pillar is the process. It is the maximum and the broad area where you have to give your, where you have to show your potential, specifically how you can standardize the system and how strategically you can comply with the regulation. So that we have been share with you the three layer where you can utilize the different template which we have shared with you that are the practical, and we have used that for the multiple organization to comply with the regulation with 100%. However, with the inspection, when the inspection or the authority come to visit for the inspection, even they initiate any NC, so you can counter that because you have developed this system or implement that based on their internal system, how they are proceeding the inspector in the organization. And then that your reporting system, because it is one of the tool where you sensitize your credibility in the organization when you presenting, you working in the smartest way. It does not took half an hour and the half an hour to present it to the management. It will take 5 to 10 minutes only when you utilizing these template as well as this system for your organization. So this is all about related to the module or the section 2 of this program. Now, welcome you in the section 3. So section 3 is related to the question and answer. So before going to picking all your questions here, so here we have one solution for you for the further level. So there we have one the level of compliance specialist program. So I want to share with you what is in that program for 2 to 3 minutes. So based on the future perspective of the compliances where it is going to be require the specialist for the labor law compliance management in the future. So based on that, we have designed this 30-day mastery program as the labor law compliance specialist with the objective to make the professional as vigilant, foresighted, and accountable and responsible with the building credibility as the professional or specialist in the career or giving them enhance their booster their career as the labor law compliance specialist. Then exactly what we are covering in this program. So there is the provision of 30 live sessions that will be based on the practical learning, and furthermore you will get the lifetime access of the video access or the learning which you will learn during the live session. So when this program will be complete, so there will be 2 live sessions monthly with the related to your queries as well as the update on the labor law. So then after we will design different types of the format which required for the labor law compliance practically during the session, so that you will be get the custody of those live template for lifetime. And then after there is the final completion certificate as a specialist. So this program does not means only to having the one-time learning or just like the self-paced learning. It is the live program and it is also hand-holding program where you will be get support from the experienced people and expert in the labor law compliance area. However, this program is the weekend program and where we are covering the sessions on every Saturday and Sunday. So that session will be 2.5 hours where including the 2 hours of practical learning and 30 minutes of question and answer. So it will be practically based on the process we have learned here in the second pillar, and all that building of the portfolio, we will be dwell the same way during these 30-day mastery program. So the news, however, it has been started the new batch for the 8th, but we are also covering the new batch from the Saturday, which is going to be start from February 5th. So we add the new batch from the every Saturday. So that is the new batch will be added from the February 5th, 8 p.m. Saturday, because the session will be start from the 8 p.m. And those people who will be went through this program, they will be have a one orientation program one day before starting of the session. So that will be the Friday. So and the 4th also. So here, what the exactly we are covering? So there we are covering the 30 plus existing labor law and additionally the 4 new codes and its concept, implementation, designing, drafting, everything we will be covered during these live sessions and program. So exactly what the people or the who is the training or who are learning with this program, they will get assured 100, that is 75% hours of practical learning. Addition to the around question and answer hour of around 30 plus hours for these 30 days. So it will be around 100 hours of learning for the participant. It will be on the WTH technique, which we have developed specifically for giving you the practical learning related to the labor law. And exactly we are covering there the 33 existing labor law and the 4 new labor code. And total 33 law will be covered under this 30-day mastery labor law compliance specialist program, and that we have divided it into 10 different modules that are related to the relativity of the different law. So that will be the different module, like which is the law related to the working hours that are separately, then the law related to the wages that will be covered separately, and similarly the new labor code, its provision and application will be separately covered. So what is the in its curriculum exactly we are covering in the module 1, where the law which are related to the working hour, defining the working hour, condition of service and employment. So there are around 10 number of the existing labor law which we are going to be covered practically and thoroughly. Then the model 2, that is related to the wages, and which define the wages for the industries and regulate the wages in the industries. Then the law, which are regulating and defining the industry relation, we are that covering in the module number 3. And module number 4 will be related or covering all those law which are covering the equality and empowerment of women in the organization. And then the module number 5 is covering separately the social security regulation and the law as the existing law, then the law which are specifically defining the prohibitive law or labor in the organization, so that we will be covered in the separate module. Then the another separate which is related to the employment and training, how the provision you have to assure when you are engaging the trainees and employment specifically, so that we are covering in the separate law or the separate module. Then the companies, so the company secretary, what is their role and responsibility in the organization, that we are going to learn practically here in this LLC Mastery Program. And then the law related to the environment and disaster, we are going to be covered in the separate module. And then finally, in the module number 10 is related to the existing, not existing, it is related to the four new codes, so that thoroughly, practically, its application and provision we will be developed and practically learn before that it will be implemented. Then finally, it is assuring that the 70 hour plus practical intensive learning and 33 plus 4 that the new codes will be practically learned by the participants. So however, here maybe you have the query related to how it will be cost. So most probably the similar program, it will be cost in the market around 50,000 rupees. But here, this is the specifically, as in the beginning, I have shared with you. So we are on the mission to educate 25,000 people annually, and furthermore, it should be cost effective and very minimal cost. And we are looking for the long-term association, so that's why it is only for the learning perspective. So there we are not offering to you the 1199 also. If you see on the other platform, it is available, so you will see this price there. And we are not offering this, but in the today, this is the specifically the special offer for the people who are going to into this program. They will be give the exclusively one special price of 2 days. That's only for the 2 day, and who are going for the live, because of the people who have joined this program, they have already paid something to this program. So here, the people who go with this program from this live session, so they will be paid only 2,999 for this program. So if you are interested for this program and want to go with this, so you can also check it out. It's a paying link. So here the link I'm sharing with you in the chat box, so you can also check out it. So here the link is for you. So you can check out it if you want to go further with. So it will be start the new batch from 5th of February. Today is the 23rd. So we will be start it with the 5th of February 2022. The new batch will be started. As of now, we have completed 3 major batches. So in that 3 major batches, we have trained about around 60 number of the trainees or 60 number of the professional as make them or as a specialist. And furthermore, it has been started in the August 2021. Since August, we have specialized the 60 number of the trainees in this mastery program or the labor law compliance specialist program. So however, if you are going with this program today, you will be get additionally 2 courses as a bonus with this program. So that is, one is the website mastery program, where you can design and develop a website by yourself, and also it is the you can start a self entrepreneurship as a freelancer as well as a website developer. And secondly, we are also providing with you the advanced Excel mastery program, which is essential for every HR people everywhere in the business. 95% of the organization, they utilize the Excel. So there we are also providing the this free of cost with this program. It is cost in both program together around 28,000 rupees for the student if they are going with these program separately. So this program will be get free of cost with this master program today. So if it comes to the now how you can go with data if you require, if you want to pay, so that when you go, there is also the one option related to the making of the payment. It is the payment that the Paytm or the Google Pay also, but we recommend our digital partner. So that is the PayU's here. So there, when you click this link which have been shared on the chat box, so there will be open this type of window. You can go and the initiate the payment here. So this is all about the procedure related to this program, how you can enter in this. And we offer this price basically in the this live session only. However, it will be cost around 5,000 rupees to the other people if you come from the indirect function, as well as the some in other platform, like where it is available on the Google, also it is available on Udemy as the our direct website also. So it will cost around 5,000 for you. But as of now, from this live program, you have already paid, so it will be cost for you only the 2,999 for today. However, so it is the now 6:45. So we have completed this section, and we have developed here the labor law compliance management portfolio, which is based on the here structure pillar three layer of structure, three layer of process, and two layer of your reporting. When you establish this structure in your organization or this concept in your organization, you will definitely comply above than 100% of the compliance. And additionally, we have shared with you the tool. If you work accordingly, it will help you to counter the authorities when they visit for inspection in your organization. That will help you to assure, build that credibility, and similarly, it will give you the four quality as the level of compliance specialist. Build those quality, the vigilant, foresighted, accountable, and responsible when you develop these. So I hope that when tomorrow you will be go back to your organization and start functioning, so you will be understand, you will be implement or try to implement this concept. However, this concept you cannot utilize just for the regular compliances, it can be utilized for the other functions also. But you have to learn that concept thoroughly. But there we have shared with you related to the statutory compliance management. You can implement in your organization and comply all the regulation, build your credibility, and be ready for the future also. So this is all about this mastery program, or as well as this today's session. If you have any question related to this program, so here you can ask now. We can pick up all those questions for next 10 to 15 minutes and cover all your queries related to the today template, as well as today's session. And then if you have any question related to the specialist course, you can also ask that. And now, before closing or binding this session here, I have one thing that I want to mention. That in the beginning I have said that this is a certificate program. You will be get this certificate for this program, but we have a procedure for that. Every that certificate will be generated or released on Wednesday. And for Wednesday, that is the procedure. You have to share your name that you want to mark on the certificate. However, name already received to us, but sometimes that names are not full. That is only the first name, that are the additional name also available, but the participant don't want to mark that name. So that's why we have the provision or procedure that you have to share your name which you want to mark on the certificate. So it is the time till Tuesday. So you have to share that through email as well as the WhatsApp also, whatever convenient for you. So by Wednesday, you will be receive your participation certificate of this program. If you have any question related to this session, you can ask in the chat box, or otherwise you can unmute yourself one by one so that we can cover all those questions today of this session. However, anybody is interested to this next level of program, they can go with that, go to this link and which has been shared on the chat box, click there. And if you are making the payment today, you will be get the immediate access, and then further the live session will be start from the 5th of the February 20. And only for today also where you have to pay 299 only. So link we have been already shared with you. So when you make the payment, so when the payment received to us, so I will here confirm your name, who has been made the payment and who are going further with the specialist program in the level of compliance. Okay, so question is the can any company, so Deepa is asking if employee basic is less than 15,000 deduct PF on the gross salary? Yes, of course, because as per the notification or the provision of the Employee Provident Fund Commissioners, there is the wage ceiling of 15,000. It was impacted or it was implemented or notified from the 1st September 2014, where the EPFO will be deducted on the gross salary also if the wages are less than 15,000. It means if you are drawing wages less than 15,000, whatever the component is there, you have to deduct the EPFO on the full gross wage. However, the many organizations we have seen that they deduct only the basic wage. That is the wrong practice and non-compliance. So that's why the organization they face the 7A and 7Q case in the EPF, and maximum number of the organizations faces such issues. Okay, welcome Sharesh. And one thing, also share your feedback about the program. You can share on the email also as well as the WhatsApp related to this program, how it has been delivered and how it was designed specifically, and then how I have delivered it, because our that the management team they also review the our presentation as well as the my progress too. So that's why it is better for me also to share your opinion and your feedback about the program and learning. However, whatever the template we have been shared, so it will be reached to you today only. So, however, it may be within 1 hour you will receive all those template, and certificate will be released on Wednesday. It will be reached to you on Wednesday, but before that, you have to share your name, what you want to mark on the certificate, and that the certificate will be released only every Wednesday. If you skip the name for this Wednesday, or you want to get the certificate after that, so it will be released only on the next Wednesday when the next session. However, in the next Sunday there are no session, then it will be on 6th only, and the certificate will be generated then the after 6, it is the 7th, 8th or 9th will be the Wednesday, then your certificate will be released. So better is that you share your name by today, tomorrow and day after tomorrow till Tuesday, so that we can generate your certificate for the program by Wednesday, and you can receive your participation certificate. So thank you so much for everyone for joining this session today, and hope you have learned something new from this program, and the concept you will initiate in your organization, and you will build up that strategy and a unique selling proposition or core quality as a specialist, so that you can succeed in your career. So Dibe is asking the another question: if an employee has resigned and ready to serve the notice period of 1 month, however, the company release him from immediate effect, does the company have the right to deduct the leave against the notice period? No, it is illegal practice. When he is ready to serve, so how you can release and then you are deducting the leaves against? This is totally wrong. Shailesh is asking related to the PPT. So PPT we does not share. However, we all the template we have shared, you will get that. For PPT, we are sharing with you the video recording. So what you can do that you can take the screenshot of that video. You can utilize that as a PPT. So that video will be available by tomorrow is Monday. Possibly by tomorrow, the video will be available. It will be shared with you through your email. Okay, thank you so much for. Is there any another question? So you can ask, or otherwise we are going to bind the session today. So I think that there are no further question by the participants. So here I'm binding up with the session. I hope that it was a great learning for all of you, and hope that you will get all that understanding. And further, if you are not connecting on the community, connect on that. There we are providing the different types of the insight related to the labor law updates for your learning, so that is free. And if you have any query furthermore and related to your work also, you can put on that. However, that may be not reverted quickly, but definitely we will revert back all those queries to you. So thank you so much for all the members for joining this masterclass today.